Welcome to Executive Leaders Radio, your spot in the corner office, the radio show where executives share their secrets to success. Executive Leaders Radio.
You're listening to Executive Leaders Radio. This is your host, Herb Cohen, with my co-host Shannon Lane Newmark and David Jackowitz, Evolution Financial Group. We have a great lineup of guests for you on our show today. Shannon, will you please give us the rundown?
Sure, Herb. We do have a great lineup today. We're starting off with April Thomas-Jones, Executive Director of Police Athletic League of Philadelphia. Next up is Werner Freyman, CEO of Southeastern Healthcare at Home. Then we'll have Jennifer Alleva, Managing Partner of Your Time Controller, LLC. And then finally, we'll wrap it up with Joel Frank, Chairman and Managing Partner of McErlane.
Excellent. Let's get to know our first guest, April Thomas-Jones, Executive Director, Police Athletic League of Philadelphia. April, what is the Police Athletic League of Philadelphia? What are you guys doing?
Yeah, so the Police Athletic League of Philadelphia provides programs to the Philadelphia youth. We provide programs for about 10,000 kids each year, and we reduce crime and promote character development.
Wow, 10,000 kids a year. Where are you from originally? How many brothers and sisters? Where are you in the pecking order?
Yeah, so I'm from Southwest Philadelphia, a nice, diverse community, and I am the youngest of three.
Youngest of three. And what kind of stuff were you up to 8 to 14 years old? What were you doing 8 to 14?
I played basketball, I ran track, and I was involved in many civic programs.
Mm-hmm. Shannon, you want to take the ball?
Sure. April, in the green room, when we were talking about, the civic activities that you were involved in and things that you were passionate about, you mentioned that you would feed the homeless. I'm curious, how did that get started? Whose idea was it?
Yeah, it was my idea. I worked with one of my friends back when I was very young, around the age of 10, and we began to feed not only some of our current friends, but we also began to feed people in our neighborhood.
Where did you get this idea from?
We got the idea because we had friends of our own that struggled with food security, and we decided that we wanted to bring some joy into everyone's life.
So at a young age, to see your friends struggle with food security, I feel like that must have been so hard as a kid.
Yeah, it wasn't so much so hard because unfortunately it was a norm. But what wasn't was bringing that bit of hope and light to people and seeing people smile.
And that hope and light that you brought to people then, how does that relate to what you're doing nowadays at PAL?
Yeah, so the communities we serve are some of the lowest income and highest crime areas. And what we work very hard to do is to provide hope so that people see there is a brighter way and a better future for all.
Then you also mentioned that you had a number of leadership roles at school. Can you tell us which one was your favorite?
Yeah, my favorite was being an ambassador for my school, which means I was the representative of the school. And it was important for me to make sure that everyone's voice was heard within our high school.
Why was that important to you?
Because I'm really big on being a team player and building up teams. And you can't be an effective team without being sure that everyone has a seat at the table.
Who taught you this, April?
I think I get it from my parents, especially my dad. My dad is an ex-Marine and a correctional officer. So being a team and never leaving anyone behind was very important growing up.
And does that show up nowadays?
Say that again?
Does that show up for you nowadays?
Oh, definitely. I give a lot of investment to my team that works here at PAL, but amplifying their voice allows us to amplify the voices of people in our community, especially the youth that sometimes are left behind.
Mm-hmm. David?
April, what did your mom and dad do?
Yeah, so my parents were both correctional officers. And like I stated earlier, my dad was an ex-Marine. Well, I'm sorry, Marines always never say ex. He was a Marine.
And you mentioned, your dad passing away when you were 17. How did that affect the family dynamic for you?
Yeah, well, I was the youngest and I had to take on a lot of adult roles very quickly, especially because my mother fell into a depression. But I think that it also taught me to never give up. Even on your lowest day, there's nowhere else to go but up.
So you mentioned in the green room that your cousin was like your brother. Tell us a little bit more about that.
Yeah, my cousin came to live with us actually when he was younger to be able to have the opportunity to go to a better school. And he followed a lot in my dad's footsteps and he went into the Army. And again, just believing in our family working together to support one another to move forward and advance in life.
And also in the green room, you mentioned track and the 4x4 and that you were the anchor. Tell us a little bit more about that and what the anchor's role is.
Yeah, I love running track. And as the anchor, we literally anchored the team. And our job was to make sure no matter what, we put that win across the finish line and to keep the morale up on the team. And even if we were losing, our job was to make sure that we won.
So what do all those things have to do with who you are today?
Yeah, so we have to win every day. And a win doesn't mean that you actually come in first place, right? It means that you don't give up and you always see that there's a better way and a brighter way. I think that what I do today is I refocus the lens. And what some people may look at and say, there's nothing left. I look at it and say, no, there is something here and let's grow it and watch it fly.
Mm-hmm. You're helping, you mentioned about 10,000 kids a year.
Yes.
So it says, according to this piece of paper, that you happen to be the executive director. So don't you get a chance to sit in your fancy office and go in at 10 o'clock, leave at 3 o'clock, and you don't got to work weekends or nights or nothing, right?
Oh, I wish, right? So we're ticking and tying 7 days a week. And the type of leader that I am, I believe you cannot lead from an office building. So I am out in the Philadelphia community almost every day. And I work with all types of people, all socioeconomic classes, because I work with the donors as well as the child that might not eat today. And I believe in making sure I give time to each and every one of them.
Wait a minute, you're working with the donors and you're working with kids that may not eat. Tell me more about that.
Yeah. So again, even just going back to my childhood, it is important to amplify everyone's voice to understand the full picture. So if there is a community meeting, if there's a child that needs to be sat with and just talked to, I am here to do it. But also sometimes, we have to work with donors and explain to them the importance of why they're giving their funds to PAL. And it is important to even hear how they see PAL and what PAL should be doing.
How long have you been the executive director of this organization?
For a whopping 6 months.
Uh-huh.
Can you believe that? I feel like it's been 6 years.
So this is really part of who you are, isn't it? This is really a mission for you. This is not just a job, I get the sense. Am I mistaken about that?
No, it is a personal mission. Prior to here, I worked as the executive director of a community center for 13 years, doing very similar work. I really believe in community engagement, youth development, and building up our communities.
So where's the money come to run PAL?
From wonderful funders like you.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And we also we also are very heavily grant funded because all of PAL's programming is 100% free. Wow.
So, and give us a sense of what you're doing with the dollars. How are you spending the dollars? What are they being invested in?
Yeah, primarily all of our funds go back into our programs. And as you can tell by our name, our number one thing is athletics. And we make sure that I'm not sure how many people are familiar with Philadelphia, but we are a city made up of communities. So we make sure each PAL center is unique to the community it serves. So one PAL center may have basketball, one may have softball, one may have football. So we make sure that we listen to the community and bring that about. And we also get a chance to bring them in through basketball or football, but we give them lots of educational opportunities as soon as we get them in the door to help their future be brighter.
What kind of educational opportunities? What do you mean?
Yeah, so we expose them to, aside from homework help, we expose them to chess. We have Read by Four we work with, which is an organization to help them work on literacy. As many people may know, Philadelphia public schools do struggle with graduation rates. And what we do is we try to work with other organizations to ensure that PAL kids do graduate, and not only graduate, they excel.
Mm-hmm. So you go into the field and actually invest your time talking with these kids?
Yes. And PAL has a unique partnership because we work with the police department as well, the Philadelphia Police Department. Mm-hmm. And I go in, I sit, I talk with the officer. And these officers, they know their kids so well. They are so ingrained into the community. And these kids, it's just no better. I've never worked for an organization so unique with so much power behind what's going on, especially in the climate of today.
Wow.
And we've been doing it since 1945.
What's the website address for this organization?
phillypal.org.
Let me have that one more time.
phillypal.org.
We've been speaking with April Thomas Jones, Executive Director of Police Athletic League of Philadelphia, here on Executive Leaders Radio. Don't forget to visit our website, executiveleadersradio.com. To learn more about our executive leaders, we'll be back in a moment right after this quick break. Don't go away. Recognize your deserving business advisors on our nation's leading Business with Heart radio show, Executive Leaders Radio. Yes, you can recognize your deserving business advisors on our nation's leading Business with Heart radio show, executiveleadersradio.com. Simply visit executiveleadersradio.com, securely enter their info, and we'll reach out to spotlight your deserving business advisors on our nation's leading Business with Heart radio show, executiveleadersradio.com. Don't wait. This radio and online social media and search engine exposure is quite valuable. Yes, this radio and online social media and search engine exposure is quite valuable to your business advisors who deserve to be recognized. Visit executiveleadersradio.com now to nominate your deserving business advisors for free exposure. We're back. You're listening to Executive Leaders Radio. This is your host, Herb Cohen. We'd like to introduce Werner Freyman, CEO of Southeastern Healthcare at Home. Werner, what is Southeastern Healthcare at Home? What are you guys up to?
We provide in-home care, nursing, physical therapy, occupational therapy, social work for patients in their home, typically after hospitalization.
Mm-hmm. How many patients did you help last year?
In 2020, we served about 13,500 patients, and in 2021, we're trending to serve around 15,000.
All righty. Where you from originally? How many brothers and sisters? Where are you in the pecking order?
So I'm from South Jersey, small town, Bridgeton. Mm-hmm. I have one sister who's younger than me.
And what were you doing 8 to 14? What kind of stuff were you up to?
Oh, I played a lot of soccer, did a lot of fishing, and painting.
Mm-hmm. All righty. David?
Werner, you mentioned that you played soccer most of your youth, and you were a goaltender. Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
I played various positions, but actually really enjoyed and primarily became a goaltender. I think what I liked most about that is that you really had a view of the field, and you were almost you were the last defense on the team, and being able to kind of see out into the field and help coach the teammates as to where they should be on the field. Hey, move left. Hey, come back a little bit and help defend. It really was a true team leader position.
So how do you think that ties into how you run your business today?
Nowadays?
Yeah, I think it ties in perfectly. Honestly, I'm still in exactly the same role, as a team leader. Same thing, guiding my employees and my teams. Hey, we need to move in this direction. Maybe we need to back off of this a little bit. Maybe we need to press forward here in this situation. So I think they're very, very similar.
Mm-hmm.
You also mentioned in the green room that you started working when you were 15. Can you share a little bit more about that?
Yeah, when I was 15 years old, my dad, came to me and said, "Hey, it's you're of working age and it's time to get a job." And he helped me find a job. Believe it or not, I was a cook at McDonald's.
So, what did you do differently than all the other cooks?
Well, I think I took it seriously. I was very proud. It was my first job. And to me, I was almost a professional in my mind, right? Hey, I'm here. I was hired as a cook. I'm going to be the best cook that McDonald's has ever had.
You also mentioned that your dad drove you. What was the impact? Your dad drove you every Saturday, correct? What was the impact of that for you?
Yeah, he did. And taught me, at that time I always thought to myself, my dad's working all week and now on Saturday he has to get up and take me in. But it was important, for him to have me learn what it was like to work and have responsibility. And, that just showed me commitment from his level as well, early on, whatever it took to help me be successful.
You also mentioned in the green room that your family came here from Germany after World War II. How did that impact your parents and your grandparents?
Well, I hear a lot of stories about it. And it was a very tough time. They came, as you mentioned, after the war, and that both of my grandfathers were professionals in Germany, veterinarian, and one was a quality control engineer. And when they came here, they started working in vegetable packing plant for what I was told, I think about 15 or 16 cents an hour. Worked super long days, 7 days a week sometimes, but got themselves to a point where they had their own homes, cars. Never really depended on anyone, never took a handout.
How do you think that affected you?
A lot. I've learned early on, again, I was the same way. I really never want to rely on anyone else, right, and teach others to do the same. I think a good example, my parents, they helped me through college, but once I graduated, I've never really relied on them. And to be honest, I'm teaching my daughter the same thing. Mom and dad are here to help you, but you have to build your own life and future.
Mm-hmm. Shannon?
Werner, who did you look up to outside of mom and dad in your immediate family when you were a kid?
Well, I had a neighbor a few houses down, and I'm a physical therapist by training. And he was a physical therapist, an avid fisherman. And, I really took to him, and almost like a second, father and uncle to me. And, what I learned from him was that he was a hard worker. He's very proud of his profession. He ended up owning his own clinic, but also he enjoyed life and, a lot of fishing. And so I think what I learned from him was the whole work hard, play hard, theory. And I still believe in that 100% for myself, and really try to support my employees in that as well, that work-life balance, which is very important.
And in the green room, you also mentioned that you came from a very structured household. Tell us more about that.
Yeah, so that was really about setting expectations and being coached when you weren't meeting those. I think a good example would be, my homework. I used to have to get my homework done before I did anything else. And, my dad would check in with me pretty much every evening. Is your homework done? And if it wasn't, I'd, have to have a pretty good reason why. And so, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Coming from the structured household, what did that teach you that has affected the way you're building your team nowadays?
To be honest, exactly the same thing. I'm a big believer in setting very clear expectations, and really allowing people to, ask questions, kind of clarify roles, responsibilities, whatever it might be. But once the expectations are set, that we agree to those, and, a high level of accountability. If something isn't what was discussed, why is that, right? And sometimes there's good reasons for that, but sometimes maybe not so much. So really helping to coach people to be able to continue to meet the expectations. The expectations can change, right, as the business changes, as the conditions change. But yeah, I think you have to constantly update the expectations and make sure that people are being held accountable.
And Werner, I understand that Southeastern Healthcare at Home is in the midst of a transition right now. Can you tell us more about that?
Yes. Yeah, actually very exciting. We were the largest privately held home health company left in Pennsylvania. And we were acquired by a company, Accent Care, which is the fourth largest home health provider in the country. And so my role is actually going to be changing from CEO of Southeastern to now the vice president of the Mid-Atlantic region. So, my team is being tasked to now, not only continue to serve residents in Pennsylvania, but we have a vision for the future where we're going to be able to service patients across the Mid-Atlantic region. So it's very exciting.
What's the Tell me a little bit more about the effect of grandpop, grandmom, mom and dad, Germany, World War II, 13 cents an hour. Tell me more about, is that having an effect on you nowadays?
It does. I mean, you have to work for everything, every single day. I think the person who preceded me here in the interview said the same thing. Every day it's almost like it starts over, right? You can't take anything for granted. And, just working hard every day.
I understand that you're a cyclist and that you're one of the top level of cyclists. And I'm wondering, when you're out there biking, what are you thinking about?
Well, let me correct you by saying, when you say top level, we'll put that in some perspective. I race as what's called the Masters category. So, so I'm racing at a high level within the Masters class. But it's a good question because, it's really a time to disconnect for me from work, right? I'm thinking about the race. It's honestly, and I've told people this before, it's when I'm racing my bicycle, it's really the only time I can truly disconnect because of the amount of focus I need to do just to be able to finish the race. And it's the same as work, 100% effort into that race for the time I'm doing it. These days it's not often that I'm winning. But my goal is to finish as the best that I can.
What's the website address of Southeastern Healthcare at Home?
Yeah, so we're actually sehomehealth.com.
All right, we've been speaking with Werner Freyman, CEO of Southeastern Healthcare at Home here on Executive Leaders Radio. Don't forget to visit our website, executiveleadersradio.com. Back in a moment, right after this quick break. Don't go away. We're back. You're listening to Executive Leaders Radio. This is your host, Herb Cohen. We'd like to introduce Jennifer Alleva, who's the managing partner of your part-time controller. Jennifer, what is your part-time controller? What are you guys doing?
We do outsource accounting and financial services for nonprofit organizations throughout the country. Right now, we're serving over 900 nonprofits in 31 states. With our over 300 staff members, and they're located in over 40 states.
And where are you from originally? How many brothers and sisters? Where are you in the pecking order?
I am originally from Belmar, New Jersey, which is a suburb of Philadelphia, and I am 5 of 6 siblings.
And what was going on with you 8 to 14 years old? What kind of stuff were you up to?
Well, I loved playing basketball, softball. I was in the Girl Scouts, and my favorite thing to do was cheerleading.
Mm-hmm. David?
You mentioned, Jennifer, that you were, you had 5 brothers and sisters. Tell us a little bit more about that. What was that like?
Well, the age difference was between, 13 years apart. So, and there were 4 boys, 2 girls. The girls needed to really have a voice in the family. And so I really had to learn with my siblings to speak up and be heard.
So you also how old were you when you first started making money?
Oh, gosh. I mean, if you would I think back to the first time I made money, but maybe not for myself. As maybe for an organization, which would be for school. We used to do fundraising, and we would have to sell candy bars, or we had this Christmas kit. You would sell like little ornaments and doodads. And I would take that Christmas kit and go door to door at like age 7 and 8 and 9, which was pretty funny. I guess at the time, my mom was like, okay, go ahead, go do that. That's cool. And I think about that now, and I just loved the competition of it, and also helping out the school to fundraise. You
also mentioned you had a job a little bit later on when you were 12. Yes. Tell us more about that.
Yeah. So also talking about making money and starting out at age 12, I had a job and I was a beach tag checker on the beaches of Sea Isle City, New Jersey. And for those who don't know what a beach tag is, it is actually a tag that you pin on your bathing suit to get on the beach, to pay for being on the beach. And it was really kind of a thankless job because people were on vacation and they were trying to enjoy a day on the beach. And I was coming around to groups of people saying, hey, do you have your beach tag? And if they didn't, I would have to sell them a beach tag.
So you had to confront people at age 12 about beach tag.
Yes.
Why did you stick with that?
I don't know. I think it was kind of a crappy job, quite frankly. But my mom encouraged me to take the job because we were very fortunate enough to have a home at the beach for the summer. And she said, what else are you going to do? Let's do this. And even if I was about to give up, it was a value of my parents to never give up something that you already committed to. And I take that through my life now and with my children.
Mm-hmm. The fact that you were going door to door at the age of 7, selling for the school on behalf of the organization, and the fact that you stuck with this beach tag thing all summer, what does that persistence and that sales ability have to do with your role as the managing partner of your part-time controller?
So when I started at your part-time controller, I started out as an associate doing accounting work at our clients' offices. And it was I was employee number 12. Eric Freyman was our founder and president, and he was about 10 years into the business. And so I consider that like really startup-ish, right? Mm-hmm. And when I started, I loved doing the work as an accountant to support nonprofits and their mission. We were like, you go into these messy organizations that need a lot of help understanding their financials, and you can provide your background and experience to help them. You look like a rock star. And I loved that. But I also noticed that, and Eric will say, within a week, but it was probably within about 6 months, that this business could really grow amazingly because there was so much need out there. Mm-hmm. And I suggested to Eric at the time, I actually wrote him a business plan and said, why don't you make me a partner in this and I will help you grow it. And that's what I did. And then he got me involved in things like sales and talking to potential new clients. And I remember like the first time I sold a new client, and it was actually a large radio nonprofit in the city of Philadelphia. And I remember standing out in the corner, coming out from that and calling Eric and saying, I just sold my first job. And it was so exciting. So I think that sales aspect and growing things.
So it was your idea to write the business plan?
What's that?
It was your idea to write the business plan?
Oh, yeah. So I'm sure Eric
you get paid for that?
I did not get paid for that. That was something that I did because my background was in public accounting.
Why did you do that?
Why did I do it?
Yeah.
Because I saw the potential in the company, and I knew I could be very helpful to Eric to grow it.
Shannon?
Jennifer, in the green room, you mentioned a list of activities that you were a part of as a kid, but you said cheerleading was your favorite. Tell us more about that. So all throughout my younger years, I tried out for the cheerleading squad of the Belmar Purple Eagles every single year. I did not make that squad until I was in 8th grade. And so I was really focused on making it. I'm so happy that I did. And I just loved it because I loved the camaraderie, the teamwork of a cheerleading squad. And I loved, kind of being the voice and being the loud cheerer for the teams. And what was your role in the cheerleading team?
So I was the base. And, the base is the person that holds kind of everything up.
That's everything up, but a lot of times as the base, other people are in the spotlight and you're supporting them. Does that relate to what you're doing nowadays?
Absolutely. I do feel, as managing partner of a firm of over 300 people, there's just a lot of support that is necessary. And we try to give that support to all of our staff every single day. It's actually written in our culture of support. Also, it requires a lot of teamwork as a base. You kind of directing people a little bit to making sure that everybody's in their spot. And also it requires a lot of communication. And that's super important to us at your part-time controller, and ensuring that there's clear communication throughout all, with clients and internally.
Mm-hmm.
And support is so important to you. And you, in the green room, you mentioned specifically supporting women. Why is that something that you make sure to take the time to do?
Well, I was very fortunate growing up through my time at Arthur Andersen, which is a public accounting firm that I started at, stayed 8 years there, to have a lot of mentors as women to help me through that time working for public accounting. Although I love it, I think it's a great place for both women and men accountants to start out. Also, my daughter is actually working for a public accounting firm right now. But I had these great mentors, and I feel like I have to give back now to the women that I work with. And your part-time controller, over 70% of our staff is women, and I really feel like I can make a difference in that way.
Mm-hmm.
And when we were talking earlier, you listed the activities you're a part of: softball, basketball, Girl Scouts, cheerleading. They're all team sports.
Yes.
And in particular, Girl Scouts, you said you loved the team aspect of that. Tell us more about that. What were you doing? What was your role?
I mean, the team aspect, we would go and do fundraising activities, go to churches and sing, and also maybe nursing homes and visit the elderly. And also, the cookie thing was selling the cookies. That goes back to, I guess, my sales career as a 7-year-old, but also team sport and trying to reach a goal together to raise money to do the fun things that we like to do, like camping and other, going to amusement parks.
And what did you take away from Girl Scouts that you're carrying with you nowadays?
I mean, going back to the teamwork aspect of what I do right now, we could not possibly be as successful at your part-time controller without amazing team members that we all kind of work together. So we have people out in the field, the vast majority. When I say out in the field, now we're doing everything remotely, but we have our client service team working directly with our nonprofit organizations. And then we have our support team that has to be there.
Jennifer, what's the website address of your part-time controller?
What's that?
Well, your website address of your part-time controller?
Is yptc.com.
We've been speaking with Jennifer Alleva, managing partner, your part-time controller, here on Executive Leaders Radio. Stick around. We'll be back in a moment right after this quick break. You now can recognize your deserving business advisors on our nation's leading Business with Heart radio show, executiveleadersradio.com. Yes, you can recognize your deserving business advisors on our nation's leading Business with Heart radio show, executiveleadersradio.com. Simply visit executiveleadersradio.com, securely enter their info, and we'll reach out to spotlight your deserving business advisors on our nation's leading Business with Heart radio show, executiveleadersradio.com. Don't wait. This radio and online social media and search engine exposure is quite valuable to your advisors. Yes, this radio and online social media exposure is free and quite valuable to your business advisors who deserve to be recognized. Visit executiveleadersradio.com now to nominate your deserving business advisors. Back. You're listening to Executive Leaders Radio. This is your host, Herb Cohen. And we'd like to introduce Joel Frank, Chairman and Managing Partner of Lamb McErlane. Joel, what is Lamb McErlane? What are you guys doing?
Lamb McErlane is a full-service law firm located in Southeast Pennsylvania. We have approximately 45 attorneys, 63 personnel overall, headquartered in Westchester, offices in Newtown Square and Philadelphia.
So where are you from originally? How many brothers and sisters, and where are you in the pecking order?
Born in Philadelphia. I am the oldest of two children. Sister, special ed teacher out in Florida, 2 years younger than I.
And what were you doing 8 to 14? What kind of stuff were you up to?
A lot of different sports with the neighborhood crew. Also held multiple leadership positions in student council, officer positions. Started working at the age of 13 as well.
Mm-hmm. Okie dokie. Shannon, please give me a hand.
Joel, can you tell us a little bit about your mom and what she was like when you were growing up?
And Mom, a very steadying force. She worked part-time outside the home, but also was always there for my sister and I upon return from school, making dinners, etc. Very steadying force, very caring, nurturing, but certainly didn't spoil us to any degree at all.
And what in particular did you learn from her that you carry with you into work nowadays?
Again, just that steadying force, to be careful, to be ahead and listening. I mean, she would discipline us when appropriate, but at the same time would listen to our side of things. So I think that's always important as well in the role in which I currently serve.
And how does that relate to the way you interact with your clients?
With the clients, I'm sorry, clients, Shannon?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, again, it's very important as an attorney and in multiple areas to go ahead and listen to very carefully, to go ahead and listen to the client's perspective on things, recognizing that it's a perspective. It may not actually be 100% actually, factually accurate. You have to get and hear other people's perspectives. There are at least two stories, as they say, to every scenario, if not three.
And Joel, what about your dad? What was he like when you were growing up?
Yeah, again, a great steadying force. My dad was a good example. He was a CPA. I'd go into his office on occasion, saw how he operated things, the culture that they established there. I saw how he was a hard worker, but at the same time, when it was time to get ahead and relax and have family time, how he very much valued that as well and appreciated that.
How could you tell he appreciated that?
You could just tell from his personality that, when it was time to work, it was time to work. But at the same time, when it was time to have family time or social time with friends, very good, positive outlook on things, very good sense of humor. And I hope to emulate that.
And when you did go into work with him, what was something that you learned that you're carrying with you nowadays?
I enjoyed it. I didn't go in all that often, but on occasion, Shannon, when he did bring me in, it was nice to see the culture that was established there. That it was somewhat of a family atmosphere. Everyone cared about one another, both professionally and personally.
I'm curious, Joel, did you guys have a chance to sit down and eat dinner as a family growing up?
Yeah, pretty much. We tried to do that on a regular basis. Obviously, I should be honest. I shouldn't say obviously, but during tax season, for example, when my dad would leave the house at 7 a.m. and get back at 11 at night, we didn't have family dinners together, at least with my dad present. But my sister, my mom, and I would still go ahead and have a dinner every night on the table and discuss that day's events.
And looking back at that now, what does it mean to you that your parents made that, an important thing to do amongst your family?
Well, again, family is important, right? One of the things I also recall from those periods is that every Friday night we'd go to one of my grandparents' houses and have a family dinner with a more expanded family there. And I have very, very fond memories of those events.
And Joel, in the greeting, you mentioned that when you were growing up, there was a point when you moved from a row house to a house in the suburbs. Tell us more about that transition and how was that for you?
Yeah, it was a learning curve, so to speak. We actually moved when I was 7 years old between first and second grade. They're still young enough that, I was able to get ahead and be assimilated into, the new environment and my new classmates in the suburban environment. But it was an enjoyable thing. I had good memories. I still have fond memories of growing up, in Philadelphia, but equally fond memories of growing up in Broomall, Delaware County.
And throughout that transition, looking back at that, what did you learn that you're still carrying with you nowadays?
Just that it was enlightening to see that, hey, when you grow up, you're kind of used to, well, this is how these how things are for everybody. And when you get and move to a different environment like that, we realize there are different, scenarios, different, considerations that take into account different ways of life, different standards of living, et cetera. So you take that into account in your modern day, in your everyday social interactions as well.
David?
Joel, how old were you when you started making money?
David, I was actually 13 years old when my dad hooked me up with one of his clients doing blacktop and concrete work.
How long did you do that for?
I did that every summer, starting at 13 up through college, as a matter of fact.
Wasn't that really hard? Why didn't you just do something easier?
It was hard, but I actually enjoyed it, though, because back then especially, nowadays you see crews on the street and there's modern equipment. Back then we were using sledges and picks, et cetera, and wheelbarrows. So it was a tough job, but at the same time, I enjoyed it. I enjoyed the crew I worked with. I enjoyed working outside, and I enjoyed the hard work, quite honestly.
Why do you think your dad, had you work with a blacktop company instead of maybe a CPA job in an office?
I think he wanted me to get ahead and experience the value and what was involved with earning a buck. I remember that when I first started at the age of 13, I was getting paid $3 an hour. And we'd be out there in 90-degree heat, 95% humidity. And I remember just coming home at the end of the day and just laying in the air conditioning on the floor for about 10, 15 minutes until you got your wits about you, your senses about you again. And then I would go ahead and get cleaned up.
So what did you take with those? What did you learn in those experiences that you carry with you today to work?
Well, again, I think perseverance and hard work. It was hard. I mean, there were times when it was so hot, you'd have to go ahead and take a break, sit under a tree in some shade for a little while, hydrate, and then get right back to it again. So I think that perseverance and the requirement of hard work has really lasted with me through the present time.
I understand that, that you're on a whole mess of boards nowadays. Where does that come from in your childhood, and what boards are you involved with?
Yeah, Herb. I mean, early on, one of my memories as far as giving back in charity was during the holiday. I still lived in Philadelphia at the time. During the holiday periods, my parents would ask us to gather up toys that we didn't use as regularly as some others. And what we would do is we'd go into the less fortunate neighborhoods of Philadelphia and go ahead and distribute those toys to people and children that were less fortunate, which was very, very much appreciated by them. That kind of led to right now, I serve on multiple boards right now. Some of the highlights, I serve on the Philadelphia Zoo Board, 501c3, Alex's Lemonade Stand Foundation, dedicated to the eradication of pediatric cancer, et cetera, your bank boards, State Athletic Commission. So just getting involved in the community, that was impressed upon me early on, and I very much enjoy doing that currently.
Mm-hmm. You also mentioned that when you were a kid, at 16, you were working for the Blacktop Company. At 13, you were working for the Blacktop Company. But at 16, you and your buddy started a business capitalizing on the clients that you already had. Would you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, absolutely, Herb. What we would do is, again, it was really non-compete. It was a supplemental service, if you will, that the Blacktop Company that I worked for, they didn't actually do sealing of the driveway. So I saw an opportunity to potentially go back and, hit up those same customers to make some additional money. So I approached a buddy of mine to get ahead and help out, and then we started our own sealing company. So we'd go back to the customers, not all of them, but some of them that we did the driveways for under the asphalt company. We'd go back 2 or 3 months later and say, hey, look, you could get ahead and seal your driveways as well, so that we actually started our own business, supplemental business, if you will.
Well, it sounds to me like you were serving those clients thoroughly. I mean, if they didn't know that they had to seal their driveway, the asphalt would have broken up sooner rather than later. So you were doing them a service, as well as you were picking up additional dollars. I guess it's one of the things you try to do with the law firm is when you have a client come in, you take a look at what all their needs are and you try to serve them completely rather than, oh my gosh, I forgot to do something. Am I correct about that?
Yeah, you're absolutely correct about that. And another component of that, Herb, quite honestly, is, I'm actually one of the bigger originators here at the firm of new business. So it's kind of like seeing those opportunities that others may not to get ahead and parlay upon existing clients to get additional business or to actually hit up, new clients, in an avenue of help that they don't currently recognize that they necessarily need it.
Well, you're adding value. You're helping people see other opportunities. Entrepreneurs and clients see opportunities that they wouldn't have seen otherwise because you're bringing them ideas. What's the website address for this law firm?
It's lambmcErlane.com.
And we've been speaking with Joel Frank, Chairman and Managing Partner of Lamb McErlane here on Executive Leaders Radio. Shannon, could you give a rundown on who we've had on the air today, please?
Sure, Herb. We had a great show today. We started off with April Thomas Jones, Executive Director of Police Athletic League of Philadelphia. Then we had Werner Freyman, CEO of Southeastern Healthcare at Home. And Jennifer Alleva, Managing Partner of Your Time Controller, LLC. And we just wrapped up with Joel Frank, Chairman and Managing Partner of Lamb McErlane.
I'd like to thank my co-host, Shannon Lane Newmark, and David Jackowitz, Evolution Financial Group, for giving me hand instructional questions. They'll be providing our listening audience an educational and entertaining show. Don't forget to visit our website, executiveleadersradio.com, to learn more about our executive leaders. Thank you for joining us today, and have a nice day. Bye-bye.